Hi there, I'm Dr. Francesca Zampollo, and with this video, I will share with you all the most interesting things happening today in the world of food design with a system design lens through the eyes of Julia Dalmadi. Julia Dalmadi is a food futurist with a digital and food innovation expertise and a proven track record in project management and concept development. She has been active as an ambassador of the Future Food Institute. In 2021, she relocated to Hungary, where she launched two ventures. With Trans Food Mission, she is building a circular system to reduce food industry waste in all its forms. And Dupli Plant is developing an AI solution for control environment agriculture systems to improve resource intensity. I asked Julia to participate in an industry project a while back, asking her to prepare this presentation, which was then part of a bigger workshop. The content of the presentation is so good that had to be shared. This is one of 7 different presentations collected in that workshop. I hope you will enjoy this presentation, and of course, in the meantime, have a lovely day and happy food design.
Hi, so my name is Julia. I won't really waste much time about my introduction because Francesca did it already. I am the founder of Trans Food Mission, which is a Hungary-based circular economy startup, and you will hear about this project a bit more as one of the examples I brought you today. But about my background a tiny bit, my connection to the food system, as everyone, I was a consumer, so we all have at least one connection. Then I had a street food stand in Berlin. That was my first entrepreneurial experiment in 2015. And what changed and brought me closer to the food system was my food innovation master program in 2018 in Italy. And in the 12 months program, I had the luck to basically travel around the world and scout disruptive ideas in our food system, disruptions which are making not only human innovation, but also innovations which are making our food system more sustainable. That was also the point when I learned about the entire food system, from production through distribution and manufacturing, retail, until consumption. So a very diverse perspectives to how we can innovate. After this master program, I stayed with our institute, and I also ran different educational programs with FAO. And thanks to these programs, the networking what we started in 2018 didn't stop. And through our very diverse students and also the lecturers who we recruited for our Food and Climate Shaper bootcamps, basically grew my network to be very international. And these people are not only interested in making a change through the food system, but they also come from very different backgrounds. They might be lawyers, but they can also be people who worked as a food scientists or food engineers. I think this diversity and the inspiration what I received from this ecosystem over the past years gave me also a lot of drive for action. And it was one of the biggest learning of these years were that we used to create things with the market-centered approach and try to sell it to people. And let's be honest, we still have people who are very passionate about their things. And if I look at my street food stand, to be fair, I was also in love with my project, and I created something which was definitely good quality, and I tried to sell it to people, but I didn't necessarily validate if that was what they were looking for. So the next step would be human-centered design, where we consider what are the problems and what are the challenges or what are the needs, what our consumers and clients are looking for, and design things for that to solve, to create solutions or provide solutions. And finally, the third layer, what kind of changed my mindset was, especially in the food system, which is very resource intense, how can we make sure that when we design these solutions, we also take into consideration the planetary trade-offs, what we have to count with. So the future of food is at the end of our fork. And with this like kind of like sentence, I started to work on my own company, Trans Food Mission, where our goal is to reduce well, waste, mainly in the food system in all its forms. What does that mean? I needed an example because I moved back to Hungary after more than a decade, and I was like, all right, our food industry is a tiny bit behind compared to Western Europe or the US. If I just knock on their door and I say, hey, I'm Julia, I'm here to revolutionize the food system, will they really listen to me and tell me, yeah, Julia, jump on board and we design foods and develop together? No, of course not. So I knew I need to lead by example, and I was very lucky that the craft brewery ecosystem in Hungary was open to give me their waste. So what you see on the picture is the brewer's spent grain, which is the byproduct of the beer production, which in best case is used as animal feed. Why? Because it has a high fiber content and protein content. So at least it's not wasted, but in a lot of cases, breweries don't have the solutions for that. And they need to waste, or they need to pay someone to actually take this waste from their properties or from their area. So we use this, of course, for human consumption ready ingredient and turned it into something which is an added value product, introducing upcycled food products to the Hungarian market. It was very important, and I think in food design is one of the crucial things. You need to design things what people are familiar with. So you shouldn't teach them how to eat it or how can they change their diet to fit this new item, but you need to create something what they already know. So creating a breakfast cereal was already the product trial, and on this way we could communicate rather our message, how the circularity is in our food design and what kind of food waste they are actually rescuing with every bite what they have from their cereal bowl in the morning. We also introduced a very fast and iterative way of product development to the market here, and luckily, that brought us within the first year of our existence an innovation prize. So that was the point where we realized, okay, the food industry also recognizes that what we created is interesting. It's something what they are willing to work with. It was very important that we shouldn't let them think that we only want to produce granola. So that's also a very easy way. People like to put you in boxes or put labels on what you create. So the next point was we needed to look for a next ingredient or the next product what could validate the circular solutions, and that was our salty snack. So from the waste of the beer producers, we created a product what they can sell with their own products. So basically, we didn't only take a waste from their properties, but also gave them value, what gives them storytelling opportunity, what gives them a product what they can connect with their own primary product, and also bring them revenue. So what kind of convince the companies, besides that they can have a story also next to the products. So that was the second layer, and that's when we realized we can actually help with our know-how to connect different wasted entities in the food system, because it's not only ingredient what is getting wasted, it's also production capacity. And I will never recommend to a brewery to have a granola production line, because why would they invest in something what is actually existing and underutilized 2 corners away? So basically we matchmake, we connect underutilized capacities, production capacities and technologies with underutilized products and ingredients or byproducts, let's say. And it is very important that these ingredients are really used by the employees who they work with. So every single time we had a new product, I was there and I was teaching the people and helping them to understand how certain materials work. So the hands-on and also the understanding, not only a top-down approach to tell this is what you need to do, but kind of be there and use your knowledge and communication skills to make every single stakeholder in the picture be involved. And that brought us to the next step where we identify further byproducts. And the next one is actually the byproduct of syrup production. What you see in the middle of the picture, I almost cried when I went to pick up the first portion because I thought I will get seeds and skin and so on. But if you look at this, it's a lot of actual fruit puree, what could be utilized in other manufacturers, by other manufacturers. And that's why you see those biscuits on the right side of the picture. We actually had a new client who wanted to take out an SKU from their portfolio because because the raspberry puree prices skyrocketed over the past year, and they didn't manage economically to keep this product, despite the fact that actually they had a very high demand for it. So now currently our testing are working. How can we use the byproduct of the syrup production to help them keep a product what they already have in their portfolio? So with all this, what is being said, as you can see, we are trying to be the knot in the middle. You all heard about the Sustainable Development Goals, and while all 17 somehow connects to the food system, we picked basically 3 what we believe we can contribute to and commit to, and that's innovation, partnerships for the goals, and of course, responsible use and consumption, by basically connecting all those resources what we already have on hand, but they might be dormant and we might not see them as a value at the moment, yet they do have, and on this way increase access to sustainable food choices long term. So it was very provocative how I started. So I questioned the food industry if they at least know how their waste tastes. And this was the whole communication and how the company started off in 2021, and now slowly but surely growing further. But I didn't only want to tell you this latest example, so I brought a few other examples which are still very much connected to how I achieved this point and how I actually build, or what principles I use to build a trans food mission. And on my own, but maybe as part of a team, but includes the tools and the methodologies what I nowadays also use when we go for our next product. The first example is when we worked for Comes Group, which is a public procurement and basically canteen provider company in northern Italy. And our goal was to reinvent the work lunch experience. Yet during the 3 months embedded design thinking project, we actually identified other parts where they don't only reshape their message towards their consumers in the canteens, but also internally to their own employees. And here I learned how important the prototyping, testing, and iterating phase is. And I was very grateful for this tool because I could use that with our own product development as well, how to actually get something what they know how to use, what can actually solve a problem what they have, and well, obviously what is tasty. So the prototyping in this sense was very important, and also that you ask diverse people, and the diversity was the key ingredient both in our team who was working on this challenge at that moment, and also in terms of the chefs and the consumers and everyone who we basically interviewed during those 3 months to come up with a system level solution and new revenue channels for the company. The next one was actually but basically the whole project started off because of a challenge, and that challenge was COVID. And our clients were the clients of Accenture in the US. It was a very diverse portfolio of wholesalers, a bakery chain, retailers, HoReCa sector representatives, so very diverse companies, yet connected to food. And what our job was is to reimagine the current food system, their current infrastructure, and see how they can survive in a time when they had to shut down. And 80% of their revenues were actually not valid. And I think the most important learning from that project was how really you can use certain infrastructures what you already have for different ways. And again, how do I apply it currently at Trans Food Mission? Well, sometimes you go to a company, you see what production line they have, and you realize that half of the products what they could produce with it, they don't even know. So I think it is very important to give access to this knowledge to everyone. So basically the outcome of this recommendation or opportunity mapping was that we used bulk ingredients, what the HoReCa sector and wholesalers had on hand, but couldn't directly sell to consumers, and see how restaurants can become dispatching stations. On that way, kind of create their own ecosystem and keep them alive during a time when they couldn't operate, but also have the supplies which are already on hand distributed to people who were actually looking for food. Then the next one is how qualitative research is important. And my current experience here in Hungary, that they still really rely on statistics, what they can reach from certain desk research and quantitative research, but they don't necessarily talk to their client. And I think one of my very interesting projects were actually the Nutrition Unpacked project. Both the top one, the Barilla one, was in Germany. It was a learning kitchen roadshow where we took over the kitchens of students and basically told them how cooking is not terrifying. And I had to basically get shocked every single dinner we hosted, where students who just left their parents' house, they couldn't name a cauliflower because they never saw it in one piece. They only saw it in a processed form. So you identify certain key insights by actually talking to people. So it was not only teaching them how to cook and how not to follow recipes gram by gram, but also to understand where they come from. They never needed to make their own food choices until they turned 18 and they went to another city to study. The Nutrition Unpacked research was also unpacking why we have malnutrition and why malnutrition is not only being undernourished and being in sub-Saharan Africa and not getting access to food, because malnutrition is all over and it's right next to us. It's a hidden hunger. What we all need to recognize and understand, why do we eat the way we eat? What we did, we basically organized multi-stakeholder dinners. And that was also during the time of COVID. You can still see masks on people. And although I was working in 6 different countries, I needed to manage all that from my living room in Berlin. I still really missed that opportunity to be there in person. But I'm also very happy how digitalization can enable us to actually organize these events. What was very important, that on these dinners, we invited consumers, grandmothers, teachers, but also food industry representatives and farmers, and how important it is that you ask them inclusive questions so they don't feel like they are not experts, and learn about the fact how their food access is defined by not only price. And this is where we basically got to a point that we identified one equation, that food access means acceptability, affordability, and availability as well, where you feel that social pressure around you or social valuation is also having an influence on your diet, but also the physical availability of certain products, because you don't have the same opportunities in an urban and a rural environment. So the result of this research was basically to give both recommendations to food industry representatives, policymakers, how and what solutions can they use to influence and basically reduce or identify and then reduce hidden hunger. Finally, as you can hear, most of the time I'm into circular solutions, because I think we really need to make the most use of what we have and give them the longest life cycle ever. And that's why the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and their methodologies are one of my basic toolset ingredients, and their upstream innovation mindset is something what we also use. But these examples, what I brought for you, are not necessarily my projects, but examples from the industry to see how different sectors can also apply the same mindset if they just go through the same elements. So the upstream innovation mindset have 3 ideology. One of them is elimination. So why do we use things, or why do we create things with what we don't really need, or we will dispose after using it once? And the question is, if packaging really necessary? Well, I think packaging is a very interesting topic to talk about in the food industry, because it gives us food safety and it gives a lot of elements what we need. However, can we find other solutions to make sure that we still keep these requirement, however we don't pollute? And that's how the 3 examples on the side come into picture. Appeal is a company who has created a layer that they can use for fresh produce like avocado and cucumber, which is edible, yet keeps the shelf life of these ingredients as long as if they would be, or even longer sometimes, if they would be in this plastic wrap, what we can usually see in supermarkets. The second example is InFarm, who are usually not mentioned in this context. They are rather mentioned as an example of controlled environmental agriculture and how you can use hydroponics and reduce water use for growing food. And I think there are certain questionable elements of the energy consumption of these modules. However, what they did, they created modules that are placed in the supermarket, so very close to the consumption, point of consumption. And that's why they didn't need to use so much extra packaging anymore. This is basically a paper bag what they just give you when you take out and harvest on the supermarket. And finally, the last one, and I'm very happy that I can bring Hungarian example as well, is basically a box returning scheme for the HoReCa sector and eliminating the single-use plastic wrapping or boxes what you use when you use takeout. And they created a system that makes it easy for the restaurant and also easy for the consumers. And what I also want to highlight, again, they use an infrastructure which is already existing. They work with delivery companies who already have their logistics. They work with restaurants who then clean the boxes because they anyway would clean other things as well. So they didn't need to build something extra to run their businesses. Then the next element of upstream innovation is reuse and how we can reuse certain things. On the circle, you can see that you have return and refill and on-the-go and at-home differences. So there are 4 different ways of how we can reuse certain packaging if we use the same example as on the last slide. And the example of what you see on top is a collaboration between a company called Loop, who basically created a logistic system where they deliver products in reusable packaging. And they partnered with Häagen-Dazs and other FMCG companies to tell them that basically on this way, they can reduce the waste what they create with their products, because these big companies also need to think about what happens with the product after we buy them in the supermarket. Their responsibility doesn't end at the point when the products are sold, but also what they create afterwards. So these schemes are already happening. I wouldn't be able to confidently say that economically they are all viable at the moment, but for that we need to also create a bigger demand for such solutions to basically with scaling make them more financially sustainable as well. Loop is actually a subsidy of a bigger company called TerraCycle, and they also recycle different packaging from the cosmetic industry and from the food production. So I think the idea behind circularity is definitely presented in their entire portfolio. Then the final element is material circulation, and that's how we can think about what can we do from what we have. And while I believe in upcycling, where you don't only create the same thing and recycle it into the same function, but you create an added value. However, recycling and composting are also solutions what we shouldn't ignore or use when we can. And the picture, the 2 examples on the picture are actually very interesting because pasta is, especially studying in Italy, I learned a lot about how they consider how they want to cook it and what needs to be on the packaging to make sure that everyone understands. And I also had it with our breakfast cereal that we tend to think that people want a window on the box because they want to see what is in the box. Well, I think this is slightly changing, but as you can see on this pasta packaging, you do have still that window, but what they managed with Fiorini together, that basically that part of the window is also made from paper. And because pasta is not something that has oil and will contaminate the paper, this packaging is actually, unless you contaminate with something else, can be fully recyclable. And the example on the top, Joy Nut Milk, basically that little tube what you see in the hand is contains paste, what you can mix with water and create your fresh nut milk at home. So what they did with that, basically they created from a multi-layer Tetra Pak a single single material packaging what can be easier recycled than the traditional packaging. So this is how we can also rethink how a certain product can be done to see if we can really make a change. in terms of the packaging.